When I mentioned to people that I would be making a new series focused on real-life legends, almost everyone responded by saying, "You're going to make one on Arnie, right?" That's partly because everyone knows how much I love Arnie, but it's also because Arnie is the absolute epitome of the expression living legend. You might know him as the highly successful bodybuilder turned movie star turned governor, but there's more to his story than that, and much more we can learn from the man. So let's take a closer look at what makes Arnie such a legend, and what we can learn from him in terms of business, self-promotion, strength training, and goal setting. Arnie was born Arnold Alois Schwarzenegger to his parents Gustav and Aurelia Schwarzenegger in 1947. He grew up in his hometown of Thai in Styria, Austria. Arnold was close to his mother, and Gustav reportedly demonstrated a clear preference for Arnold's older brother, Meinhard. At school, Arnold was described as academically average, getting by on his cheerful and good-humoured manner and exuberant character. And this is one of the first things that we can learn from Arnie at this young age. He's a shrewd businessman, yes, he's a fantastic bodybuilder, but what people often don't focus on is that he's also just a really fun and charismatic guy, and this can carry you an awfully long way in pretty much any field.
Remember, we do everything in reps. So you've done 2 reps of water drinking. Usually we do 10 reps of everything, so do another rep of water drinking.
Lots of people who've worked with him talk about how he made it fun, how he made it memorable and enjoyable, and that will help to gravitate people towards you, help to make you more influential. So whatever it is you're doing, try and make it fun, try and make it enjoyable, and be positive and optimistic along the way. Arnold was inspired at the age of 14 to begin weightlifting by screen icons Reg Park and Steve Reeves, just as he's gone on to inspire many others himself. It was then that his master plan to travel to the US on the back of a bodybuilding career began to form. He was incredibly driven and dedicated, even breaking into his local gym so he could train when it was closed at weekends. Similarly, when serving his conscripted time in the Austrian army, Arnie went AWOL during basic training in order to attend the Mr. Europe competition, which he won. Arnie said of the experience, "Participating in the competition meant so much to me that I didn't carefully think through the consequences." And this, of course, is one of the other really important lessons from Arnie: die-hard, single-minded determination. Arnie's someone who was so set on working towards a goal, nothing was going to stand between him and a workout. It's important that we have that same kind of drive, but rather than trying to force yourself to be passionate and driven about something that you're not particularly interested in, the key is to find a goal, find a passion that really does make you enthusiastic so that you can't wait to get out of bed in the morning. It shouldn't be a chore if you really love what you're doing and if you have fun with it along the way. Arnold, of course, went on to place in several more big bodybuilding competitions, being named the best built man in Europe. Off the back of this success, he travelled to London to attend the NABA Mr. Universe competition, where he placed second to Chester Yorton. This, though, gave him the opportunity to stay in the city with his new mentor and coach, Charles Wag Bennett, and during this time he also got to train with his childhood hero, Reg Park. Training with the icon, Schwarzenegger eventually won Mr. Universe in 1967, at the age of 20, and he'd go on to win the title 3 more times. Between 1966 and 1968, Arnie attended business school in Munich while working at Rolf Putziger's gym. He also got English coaching during this time, telling his coach regularly that he was going to become the greatest actor. We really shouldn't understate the extent of Arnie's vision here. Despite being focused at the time on his bodybuilding career, he had the foresight to develop himself in business, in speech, and these are things that of course helped him an awfully long way through every stage of his career. I talked about this in my video on digital polymaths, how you can keep on training, keep on learning, and that way expand your CV, your skill set, and become more of a jack of all trades. Arnie was definitely a polymath, and he was always learning, always adding new skills in order to keep transitioning from one phase of his career to the next. In 1968, at the age of 21, Arnie finally realised his dream of moving to the United States. There he would train under Joe Weider at Gold's Gym, receiving a $65 a week stipend and frequently appearing on the cover of the Media Moguls magazines. Arnie was a sure draw for selling magazines, owing as much to his persona and charisma as his incredible physique. He also wrote regular columns for the magazines, and he went on to win his first Mr. Olympia title, the most prestigious of bodybuilding awards, in 1970, and he'd win that 7 more times. To this day, he's still the youngest ever winner. During this time, Arnie also gained a bachelor's degree in international business marketing of fitness and business administration from the University of Wisconsin-Superior. He also penned his first book in 1977, Education of a Bodybuilder. What many people don't realise is that Arnie was already a millionaire at this point. Arnie and his best friend Franco Columbu, who he'd met in Germany, labelled themselves as specialty European bricklayers, turning their accents and immigrant status into an asset. Of course, their gigantic muscles also likely helped to set them apart from the competition. Arnie also set up a mail-order business selling booklets and leaflets to fans who wrote in with bodybuilding questions. Arnie said of the enterprise, "Many bodybuilders failed at mail order because they'd accept the money but not get it together to mail the product. You had to fill your orders within a certain time by law, and if the post office received complaints, it would take away your post office box and your business would be gone. But I was super efficient. There are bins for incoming mail, checks, envelopes and outgoing orders. I always showed Joe Weider, his mentor, any ad I wrote before putting it in the magazine because he was a merchandising genius. Why didn't you write fill within days, he'd ask. Put that in the ad. People want to know you're dependable. And you should say this book is a limited edition. People love limited edition." You see time and time again throughout Arnie's career how his ability to market himself was really one of his key skills, what made him stand out in terms of bricklaying, bodybuilding, acting, politics. He managed to find a way to differentiate himself and make himself more memorable and more exciting than the competition. Being able to market yourself is something that you should definitely spend time learning and developing because it will help you in relationships, in business, in every area of your life. And the secret is often not to focus on the logic, but rather to focus on the emotion, the value proposition. What is it about what you're offering that's exciting and different from everyone else? And the other lesson to take from this is efficiency and also sticking to your word. If you develop a reputation for being flaky in business, relationships, any other aspect of your life, then you won't be successful. Arnie made sure that when someone bought his courses, they got them, which might sound simple, but you'd be surprised how many of these smaller businesses fail on that very fundamental test. You must never think about a job as being unimportant or beneath you. Even if you're a checkout assistant and you hate your job and you're just doing it as a summer stopgap, you should be efficient, you should be helpful, you could be friendly. This will help you to succeed. You never know who's listening, you never know who's watching, and you never know what opportunities could arise from that if you put in the time and the work. I found myself in my writing business that what's really set me apart is just making sure that I deliver my work on time every time, even if that sometimes means I have to work till 3 AM to get it all finished. All of Arnie's money would be reinvested into real estate, starting with the purchase of a 6-plex apartment building. He lived in apartment number 6 and rented out the other 5. He'd go on to make money in many more savvy investments too, even being the first private individual to invest in a passenger plane, which he eventually sold for $11 million in 1998. So during this time, Arnie was completing a degree, running multiple businesses, and thriving as a bodybuilding world champion. To keep himself together, he recently reported that he would use transcendental meditation to avoid letting all of his challenges become one big problem. Something else many people don't realise about Arnie is that he also competed in powerlifting and weightlifting competitions and enjoyed several victories in those fields too. In 1967, for instance, he won the Munich stone lifting competition by lifting a 254 kilogram stone. He was not just massive, he was genuinely strong, with his personal bests on squat, bench press and deadlift being 247 kilograms, 240 kilograms and 320 kilograms respectively. Arnie retired from bodybuilding in 1975, but he returned once more to compete and become Mr. Olympia again in a slightly controversial decision in 1980. He was famous for using psychological warfare prior to competition in order to unsettle his opponents. It's worth reading Education of a Bodybuilder if you want to understand more about Arnie's training at this time. While some advice is dated, other sections are still highly useful and provide some lesser-known tips. Arnie, for instance, says that he prefers training outdoors where possible to help fuel the body with oxygen. He also talks about the importance of a relaxed and carefree attitude. Arnold also talks about the importance of an enthusiastic training partner, and of course that would be Franco in his case. The two would regularly train together at Gold's Gym and Muscle Beach, despite technically competing for the same title. Arnie is still best friends with Franco Columbu to this day, and continues to train and to support the bodybuilding industry, as well as his hometown in Austria. Despite accomplishing so much, he demonstrates remarkable loyalty in areas of his life. He's also formed a close friendship with one-time rival Sylvester Stallone. I personally believe that these close relationships help to give him the positivity that has been so prevalent throughout his career. Of course, not all of Arnold's relationships have been so ideal, but no one's perfect, I guess. So in the gym, Arnie would bring his same trademark focus and determination and really concentrate on the muscle he was training. He espouses the importance of the mind-muscle connection. If your mind is elsewhere, if you're answering texts, then you're not getting 100% out of your workouts. He would use largely rep ranges of around 8 to 10, and he'd use a lot of Joe Weider's intensity techniques, things like drop sets, cheats, forced reps, in order to really pull the blood in the muscles, build up those metabolites, and get the pump that would ultimately result in hypertrophy with rest and relaxation. Of course, the rest of Arnold's story is better known, and from this success in bodybuilding, he went on to launch a highly successful acting career, eventually becoming the highest paid actor in Hollywood. Under the pseudonym Arnold Strong, he played the role of Hercules in 1969's Hercules in New York. He had several other bit parts following that, but perhaps his first big breakthrough was in the documentary film Pumping Iron, opposite Hulk actor Lou Ferrigno. Arnie made sure to capitalise on the exposure here by playing an exaggerated version of his own character, chewing scenery and making multiple bold and controversial statements, becoming an instant standout. He went on to star in Conan the Barbarian in 1982, which would be his first box office hit. Following that was Terminator from little-known director James Cameron, which of course was also quite successful. During this time, Arnie demonstrated a remarkable radar for picking out the best scripts, the ones that would turn into blockbuster hits, but he was also very good at choosing films that would play to his strengths. He turned things like his thick accent and his large physique into assets, whereas otherwise they might have been detrimental to his success. Later, Arnie would go on to demonstrate exceptional adaptability too, transitioning from violent action films to family-friendly comedic roles that utilised his comic timing and charisma. This helped him to become a true household name and no doubt laid the foundation for his subsequent political career. Arnie became involved in politics long before rising to prominence as Governor of California, with his first appointment being chairman of the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports between 1990 and 1993. Of course, Arnie also married into a political family when he married Maria Shriver in 1986. Arnie announced his candidacy for the 2003 California recall election on August 6th, and won despite a large smear campaign against him. CBS News reported that voters focused much more on the candidate's leadership and personal qualities, once again showing the role of emotion in decision-making and marketing. Of course, Arnie also put a lot of his skills in self-promotion and marketing to use here once again, along with his skill for one-liners and slogans. He did not accept the usual governor's salary. He was re-elected in 2006 with a margin of over 1 million votes. Here Arnie demonstrated his ability to use one success to springboard and launch himself into his next project. You don't have to take the most obvious linear path from bottom of the corporate ladder to the top. Often you can take any kind of route to reach the destination you want to get to, moving horizontally between industries and using success in one area to help propel yourself in a completely different area. Just as he would invest his money into properties, so he'd invest each success in order to give himself more clout in a different area. So think about what skills and experience you've developed that you can maybe apply to a completely different career or a different area of your life. Think about the connections you've built and the opportunities that you already have that you might be missing. Arnie was incredibly shrewd at seizing opportunities. Whether Arnold's tenure as governor was a success or not is a point of contention. As with any politician, opinions vary drastically on Arnie's policies and performance. He left with a low approval rating of 23%, but many say he did a reasonable job under the circumstances, inheriting the impact of the recession in 2008 and going up against an established state Democratic Party. Environmentalism is a cause that's close to Arnold's heart and one that he repeatedly championed throughout his time as governor, signing bills with the aim of reducing emissions by 25% by 2020. Arnie describes himself as a moderate Republican, being fiscally Republican and socially liberal. He takes a pragmatic approach, putting policy before party and making long-term decisions that won't necessarily serve his best interests. He was known to work with politicians from both parties, and he's been outspoken against many members of his own party. One thing that is certain is that he was a rare politician. Since stepping down as governor, Arnie has returned to acting and continues to be vocally political, speaking out against gerrymandering and various other issues. He engages in a lot of charitable and philanthropic work, perhaps most entertaining being his Will It Crush series of YouTube videos for after-school all-stars. He has generally adapted very well to the social media age too, building a large following across multiple platforms and using them to promote his various projects and causes. Arnie is set to star in a new Terminator film, directed once again by James Cameron, and to produce and star in a series called Outrider for Amazon Studios. I'm immensely curious to see where his career takes him next. Again, no one's perfect, and that obviously includes Arnold Schwarzenegger. However, he's certainly incredibly inspirational in terms of what he's achieved and the way he's achieved it. He's the epitome of the expression self-made man, and this post hasn't even come close to discussing everything that he's achieved or every project he's been involved in. But perhaps the most important take-home from all this is to have a singular goal, a singular vision that really excites you and that drives you, and then to work with single-minded determination towards that and not make any excuses. I guess if you want to follow in Arnie's footsteps, then the question you need to ask yourself is, what are you doing right now to move towards your goals? What have you done today that has moved you closer to your goals? And your goals don't need to be as massive as Arnie's. You don't need to be aiming to be the president or an action movie star. It could just mean trying to get a better house, or it could just mean enjoying your work more. Whatever it is, identify how you can improve things and then work towards them and take concrete steps to actually get there. Don't just daydream, make the effort. I always find it interesting how a lot of really well-built Hollywood actors like Jackie Chan or Arnold Schwarzenegger or Dolph Lundgren or Sylvester Stallone, or of course Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, these guys are all not only successful in Hollywood, but they've also been successful in countless other fields and other areas. They're all polymaths in one way or another. And I think that's because, as Arnie says, he learned everything that he needed to know from bodybuilding. In bodybuilding, there are no excuses. If you don't train, if you don't eat right, if you don't rest, then you won't grow and you won't get stronger. Likewise, in all those other areas, building businesses or pursuing a dream project, there aren't any excuses. You need to put in the work, you need to grind and do the small things when nobody else is watching. That's what makes you successful in those areas. So many people talk about how they're going to change their body, so many people talk about how they're going to launch a new business or how they're going to travel the world, but they don't actually take any steps to get there. It's all talk. And you manage to achieve all these things while still having friendships and relationships and a lot of fun along the way. And if you don't have time to do all that, well then, as Arnie says, sleep faster. Speaking of business and marketing and promoting yourself, you might have noticed that I'm wearing a Bioneer t-shirt. This is a new thing. A lot of you guys asked where you could buy merchandise for the Bioneer, which I'm very grateful for. Thanks for that. So if you'd like to get yourself a t-shirt like this, check out the link in the description down below, or head over to thebioneer.com, and I'm sure I'll be promoting it all over there. I'm also doing tank tops, and soon I'll be adding hoodies and things, maybe mugs, etc. Likewise, let me know what you'd like to see with the Bioneer logo on it. So thanks a ton for watching, guys. I hope you found this video useful and interesting. If you did, then please consider leaving a like, sharing it around. That helps me out immensely. I hope you like this new series. Let me know in the comments down below who else you'd like to see me cover in future videos. I've also got a lot more of the usual stuff on the way. I'm also going to be looking at Shinobi training. I'm going to be looking at Nightwing training. I'm going to be talking about cognitive biases, how to build a YouTube business. So if all that sounds cool, then thanks a ton for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.